In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the Flutter library Google Fonts. This is the app we're going to build today, and in this case, I'm using two different Google fonts. The first one is Roboto, and the second one is Rubik Beastly. Let's get started. So the package we are going to use is called Google_Fonts. The current version is 2.3.1. Click on this here to copy it to your clipboard. Go to your pubspec.yaml file, and under your dependencies, just paste it in here. Now, before you run pubget, I will note another thing. We can use the Google Fonts library for using fonts, either by having the fonts locally in a custom folder, or we can dynamically load them from HTTP directly from Google. I'm going to show you how to do both. So this is how you do it. You scroll down to Flutter, where you have these assets. Usually this is commented, so uncomment this, and then under your root directory of your app, simply create a new directory called Google_Fonts. Then in your pubspec.yaml file, you simply say that you want to have these Google fonts to be registered for your app. Usually you also have this fonts, but in case of the Google Fonts library, this is already registered by doing this with the assets. So you don't have to define the fonts you're going to use under fonts here. And also when you're copying the fonts to your Google Fonts folder, don't rename them. So here we can see a link to the fonts of Google that we can use. Simply click on that. Then you can simply browse through the fonts you want to use or search for them here. In our case, we use Roboto. Then you simply click on this here and then download the family. Also, the other font we are going to use is called Rubik Beastly, and you can also download it if you want to. Once you downloaded it, you get a zip folder, unzip it, and then in case of Roboto, you will have these font files here, and then open up your Google Fonts folder from your app, and then simply select the ones you want to use and then copy them and then paste them in here. Now you can run pubget. A small thing to note, since you can use the Google Fonts library for Android, iOS, Linux, macOS, web and Windows, it mostly works out of the box, except for macOS. If you want to load fonts from HTTP in the background, there's a small entitlement you have to add to your macOS folder. This you can find under macOS, runner, and then go to your debug profile.entitlements and release.entitlements, and then simply paste this underneath this other key here. That's all we need for the setup. Regarding the layout, I simply created a very simple Flutter app. Here we have a column which is centered with one text with the Roboto font and one text with the Rubik Beastly font. And how can you use now these Google fonts? Very simple. When you define your text widget, you can use the style and then simply say Google Fonts Roboto, and then, as you already know from the usual text widget styling, you can use the color, for example, or the font size and all the other variables you want to define. So you can either use Google Fonts.Roboto, write it as such, or you can load them dynamically with Google Fonts.getFont and then the font name. If you have the choice, I would advise you to go with writing it like this, since you already know before running your app if the font you want to use exists, because if you have a spelling mistake in here, this will give you an error later on when the app is running. And now when we run the app, this is how it will look like as we've seen before. There's nothing really fancy going on here. I hope you liked this tutorial. Please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.